I woke up on Christmas morning with a knot in my stomach. Being a single father to my 6-year-old son Lucas had its challenges, but nothing compared to dealing with my wealthy parents and their constant disapproval. After losing my job and my wife Susan to cancer in the same year, I reluctantly accepted their financial help. The invitation to their annual Christmas party came with a clear note: no children allowed, including Lucas. I spent a fortune on last-minute childcare just to please them. But when I arrived at their mansion, my heart stopped. There were my sister Amanda's 3 kids running around the living room. When I confronted my parents, they simply said, "Those children deserve to be here." That moment changed everything. Let me know where you are watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button to hear how I finally stood up to my family and ended their financial control over my life. Life had not been kind to me over the past 2 years. At 35 years old, I found myself starting over in almost every way possible. I had been a successful software engineer at a mid-sized tech company until widespread layoffs after the pandemic left me scrambling for work in an oversaturated market. Job hunting might have been my primary focus, if not for the devastating diagnosis my wife Susan received just weeks after I lost my job. Susan and I had been college sweethearts. We met during freshman orientation and married right after graduation. She was the love of my life, brilliant and kind, working as an elementary school teacher while I built my career in tech. We waited until we were financially stable to start a family, and Lucas came along when we were both 29. He was our miracle, the perfect blend of both of us, with my dark hair and her bright blue eyes. When Susan was diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer, our world shattered. The disease moved quickly, and despite every treatment available, she was gone within 8 months. The medical bills piled up alongside my unemployment checks, which barely covered our basic needs. With savings dwindling and a 6-year-old son depending on me, I found myself in a position I never imagined, asking my parents for help. My relationship with my parents had always been complicated. My father, Richard, built a successful real estate development business from the ground up and expected nothing less than perfection from his children. My mother, Evelyn, came from old money and was obsessed with social status and appearances. Growing up in their household meant constant pressure to achieve, to look the part, to never embarrass the family name. Nothing I did was ever quite good enough. When I approached them for financial assistance, they agreed to help with a substantial loan, but it came with strings attached. They would pay off the medical bills and provide monthly support until I found stable employment, but they expected regular updates on my job, search my parenting, and even had opinions on where Lucas should attend school. It was humiliating, but I had no choice. My younger sister Amanda, on the other hand, had always been the golden child. 3 years, my junior, she married a successful attorney right out of college and gave our parents 3 perfect grandchildren within 5 years. She never had to work a day in her life, lived in a beautiful home. Our parents helped purchase and received nothing but praise and support from them. Her children, ages 8, 6, and 4, were treated to lavish gifts, private schools, and constant attention from their grandparents. My childhood memories were filled with examples of conditional love. When I brought home all, as except for one B, my father focused solely on the B. When I made the baseball team but not as starting pitcher, my mother wondered aloud why I could not be more like the Johnson boy down the street. Every accomplishment was measured against someone else's child who had done better. It created a constant feeling of inadequacy that followed me into adulthood. Lucas was nothing like the polished, perfectly behaved grandchildren my sister had produced. He was wildly intelligent but energetic and creative, sometimes loud, always curious. He asked too many questions, occasionally spoke out of turn, and had a tendency to get lost in his own imagination. In other words, he was a normal, healthy 6-year-old boy. But to my parents, he was unrefined, lacking discipline, a reflection of my failings as a father. They rarely spent time with him, always finding excuses to cut visits short. Despite this, Lucas adored the idea of his grandparents. He created drawings for them, asked about them often, and was beyond excited about Christmas at their house. He had spent weeks crafting special homemade gifts for everyone in the family, including custom bookmarks for his grandfather and a hand-painted ornament for his grandmother. The sparkle in his eyes when he talked about giving them his presents made what I was about to face even more painful. The invitation arrived 2 weeks before Christmas, an elegant cream-colored card with gold embossing announcing the annual Wilson family Christmas gathering. At the bottom, written in my mother's perfect script, Adults only, please. No children this year. I stared at those words, reading them over and over, knowing exactly what they meant. Lucas was not welcome. The phone call from my mother came the very next day, as if she sensed my hesitation. I hope you received our invitation. Chance, she said, her voice crisp and formal as always. I just wanted to clarify that this year's party will be adults only. The caterers are preparing a very sophisticated menu, and we have hired professional musicians. It simply is not appropriate for children. But what about Lucas? I asked already, knowing the answer. It is Christmas, Mom. You will need to find a sitter. Her tone left. No room for negotiation. Perhaps that nice college girl who watched him last summer. You know how these events are. Chance. The conversation will be adult-oriented, and frankly, based on what I observed at Thanksgiving, Lucas is going through quite an active phase. That active phase she referred to was Lucas accidentally knocking over a glass of water at dinner and asking too many questions about the decorative antiques in their home. Normal 6-year-old behavior that apparently warranted exclusion from family Christmas. Finding childcare during the holidays proved nearly impossible. Every sitter I normally used was either traveling or already booked. After 3 days of searching and dozens of calls, I was growing desperate. I called my mother again to explain the situation. I am having trouble finding someone to watch Lucas, I explained. Maybe just this. Once he could come, I will bring quiet activities for him, and we would not stay late. Her response was immediate and cold. That simply will not work. Chance, we have planned this event carefully. There will be crystal and antiques out. The food will not appeal to a child, and frankly, our friends are expecting a sophisticated evening. Amanda has already arranged for her children to stay with her in-laws. I suggest you try harder to find a solution. Family obligations are important, and your father expects you to be there. The implication was clear. My financial support depended on playing by their rules. The monthly checks that helped keep our modest apartment and covered Lucas's needs were contingent on remaining in their good graces. Explaining the situation to Lucas was heartbreaking. His little face fell as I told him he would not be spending Christmas with his grandparents and cousins. But I made presents for everybody, he said, his bottom lip quivering. And Grandpa said last time I could see his coin collection at Christmas. I know, buddy, I said, pulling him into a hug. But sometimes grown-ups have special parties. We will still have our Christmas in the morning, and then you will get to have a special time with a babysitter while I go to Grandma and Grandpa's for a little while. Can I at least send my presents, he asked. Absolutely, I assured him, fighting back my own emotions. I will make sure everyone gets them. In the days leading up to Christmas, I carefully wrapped gifts for my family members, including the handcrafted items Lucas had made. He had spent hours on each one, his small hands carefully painting and gluing with intense concentration. For my sister and her husband, I purchased gift cards, unable to compete with whatever lavish presents they would exchange. For my parents, in addition to Lucas's handmade gifts, I bought an expensive bottle of scotch for my father and a silk scarf for my mother, stretching my budget, but knowing appearance mattered. Christmas morning arrived with a dusting of snow. Lucas and I exchanged our own gifts early, his face lighting up at the new science kit and books I had saved for months to buy him. We had a special breakfast, watched Christmas cartoons, and then it was time to prepare for the dreaded party. At the last minute, I found a professional childcare service that was open on Christmas Day, charging triple their normal rate for holiday coverage. It would put a serious dent in my already strained budget, but I had no choice. I packed Lucas's backpack with snacks, his new books, and a few toys, trying to make it seem like an adventure rather than what it was being excluded. After dropping off a disappointed Lucas, I drove to my parents' suburban mansion, a 4-bedroom Georgian-style home in the most exclusive neighborhood in town. I parked behind a row of luxury vehicles and gathered the gifts from my trunk, mentally preparing for the next few hours of small talk and subtle judgment. When I rang the doorbell, my mother answered wearing a designer dress and Pearl's air, kissing my cheek and taking the gifts from my arms. I followed her into the large foyer, already hearing the sound of classical music and conversation from the living room. And then another sound stopped me in my tracks. Children's laughter. I stepped into the living room and froze. There, playing with new toys by the massive Christmas tree, were my sister's 3 children. My niece Taylor was showing off a new doll to my mother's best friend, while the boys Jackson and Miles raced remote control cars around an expensive area rug. Amanda sat on the sofa, smiling proudly, as guests commented on how adorable her children looked in their matching Christmas outfits. The confusion and anger must have been evident on my face because my father immediately appeared at my side with a whiskey in hand. "Glad you could make it, son," he said, pressing the drink into my palm. "Great turnout this year. I thought this was adults only," I said, my voice low but intense. The invitation specifically said, "No children." My father glanced at my sister's kids and then back to me with a dismissive wave. "Well, you know how it is." Their other grandparents had a last-minute change of plans, and we could not very well leave them alone on Christmas. "I had to leave Lucas with strangers," I said, feeling my temper rising. "I paid nearly $200 for a sitter because you insisted no children were allowed." By this time, my mother had joined us, a tight smile on her face. "Chance, please keep your voice down. Guests are trying to enjoy themselves. I want to know why Lucas was excluded when clearly children are welcome," I insisted. My mother sighed, exchanging a glance with my father. "Perhaps we should discuss this in the kitchen." Away from the ears of guests in the spacious gourmet kitchen, with its marble countertops and professional-grade appliances, my parents' facade finally dropped. My mother closed the door behind us, while my father leaned against the counter, arms crossed defensively. "Let us be honest. Chance," my mother began, her voice cool and measured. "Amanda's children have been properly trained for social situations. They know how to behave around valuable items and important people. They have been raised with structure and discipline. And Lucas has not." I could feel heat rising in my face. "You have always been more permissive in your parenting," my father interjected. "The boy is too loud, too active." At Thanksgiving, he was running through the house, touching everything, asking inappropriate questions. "He knocked over a glass of water and was curious about your antiques," I shot back. "He is 6 years old, for God's sake." My mother's lips pursed into a thin line. "Our friends expect a certain atmosphere at our gatherings. Lucas simply does not fit that atmosphere. I am sure you understand." Before I could respond, the kitchen door swung open, and Amanda walked in immediately, sensing the tension. Her perfectly highlighted hair was styled in loose waves, her slim figure showing no signs of having carried 3 children. "What is going on?" she asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. "Chance is upset about the children being here," my mother explained. Amanda turned to me with a practiced look of sympathy that did not reach her eyes. "Oh, I am so sorry if there was confusion. Mom and Dad were kind enough to make an exception when our sitter canceled. My kids know how to behave at adult functions. They have been attending etiquette classes since they were 3. The realization dawned on me with sickening clarity. This had never been about having a child-free event. It had always been specifically about excluding Lucas. "So this was the plan all along?" I asked, looking between the 3 of them. "To keep Lucas away while welcoming your perfect grandchildren." My father stepped forward, his patience visibly thinning. "Now listen here. We have done everything we can to support you through this difficult time. Paid your bills, kept a roof over your head, even though you refused to take our advice on proper discipline and structure for that boy." His words hit like physical blows. That boy. Not my grandson or even Lucas. That boy. "Do you have any idea what Lucas has been through?" I asked, my voice rising, despite my efforts to control it. "He lost his mother. His entire world was turned upside down. And instead of showing him love and support, you judge him for acting like a normal child." My mother scoffed. "Do not be dramatic, Chance. Children are resilient. If you had enrolled him in the private academy we suggested instead of that public school, or taken him to the child psychologist we recommended, perhaps he would be better adjusted." The conversation was rapidly spiraling into familiar territory, where every decision I made as a parent was wrong in their eyes. But this time a new and horrifying detail emerged. "I have had to explain to everyone why your son is not here today," my mother continued. "Judith Thompson asked specifically about him, and I had to tell her that unfortunately he is going through a difficult behavioral phase that makes social gatherings challenging." The revelation that my mother had been disparaging Lucas to her social circle made my blood boil. Before I could respond, Amanda dropped another bombshell. "Mom and Dad are just trying to help you, Chance," she said with false sweetness. "Not everyone gets the kind of support we do. They helped me with the down payment on our new house, and they have been covering your expenses for over a year now. The least you could do is respect their wishes about the holiday." "New house?" I turned to my parents. "You helped Amanda buy a new house while I am struggling to make rent in my apartment." They had the proper financial planning, my father said defensively. They saved appropriately, invested wisely. The help we gave them was supplemental, not a complete bailout like what you required. My wife died, I nearly shouted. I lost my job because of a global pandemic. These were not personal failings. My mother actually rolled her eyes. There you go again, making excuses. Amanda's husband lost clients during the pandemic too, but he adapted. He found new opportunities. You have always taken the easy way out, Chance. Always looking for handouts instead of solutions. In that moment, with the Christmas music playing faintly through the door and the sounds of a party in full swing beyond, something inside me finally broke. Years of feeling inadequate, of trying to measure up, of enduring conditional love, all came crashing down around me. Lucas deserves better than this, I said, my voice suddenly calm and steady. He deserves grandparents who love him unconditionally, who see how bright and kind and amazing he is. And I deserve better too. I set my untouched whiskey on the counter and straightened my shoulders, looking directly at my parents. I am done, I said firmly. As of today, I am ending your financial support. I will figure out my own way forward without your money or your judgment. My father laughed. Actually laughed. Do not be ridiculous. You cannot survive without our help. Watch me, I replied. I would rather work 3 jobs than have Lucas grow up thinking he is not good enough. That is what I grew up thinking, and I will not pass that legacy on to him. My mother's confident expression faltered slightly. You are being impulsive. Think about what you are saying. I have thought about it, I said. For years, actually. I have spent my entire life trying to earn your approval, and it has never been enough. I will not let Lucas spend his childhood the same way. Keep your money. Keep your conditional love. We do not need it. Amanda, who had clearly expected me to back down as I always had in the past, looked genuinely alarmed. You cannot be serious, she said. You are throwing away everything over one Christmas party. This is not about one party, I replied. This is about a lifetime of being made to feel less than. And now, you are doing it to my son. It stops today. I walked out of the kitchen through the living room full of guests who had no idea of the drama unfolding, and retrieved the gifts I had brought, including Lucas's handmade presents. They did not deserve his heartfelt creations. Without another word to anyone, I left the house and drove directly to the childcare center, paying for only the 2 hours Lucas had been there, and apologizing for the early pickup. What about Grandma and Grandpa's party? Lucas asked as we drove home. I decided we should have our own party instead, I told him. Just us. We can make cookies and watch Christmas movies in our pajamas. Would you like that? His little face lit up with genuine joy, the kind my parents had never been able to appreciate. Yeah, that sounds awesome, Dad. That night in our modest apartment with a small artificial tree and simple decorations, Lucas and I had the best Christmas of our lives. We baked cookies that turned out slightly burned, built a fort in the living room, and watched animated Christmas specials until Lucas fell asleep against my shoulder, happy and secure in the knowledge that he was loved exactly as he was. The days after Christmas brought significant changes to our lives. I changed my phone number and set up email filters to block messages from my parents and sister. The first month was difficult financially, but I was determined to stand on my own 2 feet, even if it meant cutting back to the bare essentials. January brought an unexpected opportunity. A former colleague reached out about a position at a startup company. The salary was less than I had made previously, but more than enough to cover our basic needs with potential for growth as the company expanded. I threw myself into the interview process and landed the job starting in February. With a steady income, I created a strict budget and began the slow process of financial independence. I sold my car and bought a reliable used model, using the difference to start an emergency fund. I found a more affordable apartment in a decent school district, and Lucas and I turned the moving process into an adventure rather than a hardship. One of the most transformative decisions I made was joining a support group for single parents. There, I met other mothers and fathers navigating similar challenges without judgment or criticism. These strangers quickly became friends, offering childcare swaps, advice, and a sense of community I had never experienced with my biological family. 6 months after the Christmas party incident, I received a letter from my mother. Unlike her usual formal stationery, this came on plain paper, her handwriting less perfect than I remembered. Dear Chance, she wrote. These past months have given me time to reflect on our relationship and my role as a grandparent. I realize now that I have failed both you and Lucas in many ways. My concern with appearances and societal expectations clouded my judgment and prevented me from truly seeing the wonderful grandson I have. Your father and I miss you both, and would like an opportunity to make amends on your terms. Please consider contacting us when you feel ready. I read the letter several times but did not immediately respond. I needed time to process my feelings and determine whether reconciliation was possible or even desirable. I tucked the letter away, focusing instead on building our new life. By the time the following Christmas approached, Lucas and I had established new traditions and a strong support network. I had received several promotions at work and was slowly building savings while paying down the remaining medical debt on my own terms. Lucas was thriving in his new school, making friends, and excelling academically. We hosted a Christmas gathering in our apartment for other families from the single parents group. The decorations were homemade, the food was potluck, and the atmosphere was filled with genuine laughter and acceptance. Looking around at these people who had become our chosen family, I realized we had found something my parents' elaborate parties had always lacked: authentic connection. Shortly after New Year's, I finally responded to my mother's letter agreeing to meet for coffee in a neutral location. The conversation was awkward at first, but eventually productive. I established clear boundaries about their relationship with Lucas and me moving forward. There would be no financial assistance, no unsolicited advice on parenting, and absolutely no criticism of Lucas's behavior, unless it was genuinely harmful. To my surprise, they agreed to my terms. Our first reunion was a brief lunch at a casual restaurant, where Lucas showed them his report card and artwork, without any of the anxiety he used to display in their presence. It was a small step, but a meaningful one. Over time, our relationship slowly improved. My parents made genuine efforts to connect with Lucas on his level, even attending his school science fair, where they proudly took photos of his volcano experiment. My father taught Lucas about his coin collection as promised, while my mother learned to appreciate his creative energy instead of trying to suppress it. My relationship with Amanda remained distant but civil. Her children occasionally played with Lucas during family gatherings, discovering they had more in common than their parents had allowed them to explore previously. The greatest change, however, was within myself. Standing up to my family had broken a lifetime pattern of seeking approval and acceptance from people who were incapable of giving it freely. I found confidence in my ability to provide for my son, not just financially, but emotionally. The validation I had sought from my parents was ultimately something I needed to give myself. Lucas noticed the difference too. One night, as I tucked him into bed, he said something that brought tears to my eyes. "Dad, I like who we are now," he said simply. "You smile more." In that moment, I knew that walking away from my parents' financial support had been the best decision I could have made. True wealth was not in my bank account, but in the relationship I was building with my son, based on unconditional love and acceptance. The journey from that painful Christmas to where we are now has taught me that family is not defined by blood or obligation, but by love and respect. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is walk away from toxic relationships even when they come with financial security. The freedom found in self-reliance and authentic connection is worth far more than any inheritance or handout. What toxic family situations have you had to walk away from? How did you find the strength to stand up for yourself or your children? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in difficult situations. Thank you for listening, and remember that you deserve to be valued for exactly who you are, not who someone else thinks you should be.